Hey everyone, welcome to On the Record, the new spotlight series by Loyola Gaming. This show is part of our Women in Esports initiative where we're sitting down with the people truly shaping the industry to get their stories on the record. I'm your host Minru, and today we're talking about a different side of the craft. In esports, we often focus on the players and the casters, but today's guest is a master of creative identity. She's a streamer, a model, and an incredible cosplayer who brings characters to life. Please welcome Miss V de Leon.
Hi, everyone. Good insert whatever time it is here right now for when you're watching this. I hope you're all doing well. So, as Minru mentioned, I am V. You may call me V or Miss V. And yeah, pretty much the introduction checks out very much. And I am very happy and excited to be here having this conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, also, Miss V. I first want to ask because as I looked at your feed, you're always transforming into these amazing characters. But when you're just V at home with no wig, no makeup, what's the game that you play just to totally relax?
Oh my gosh, that is a very loaded question. Because does anyone actually play any games to relax? Let's be real.
Oh,
Parang we all get stressed when we play something at a certain point. Siguro I'll answer that in two ways, no? One, kasi when I'm just me at home, I like playing with friends.
mhm.
But when I play with friends, they're usually games that are not necessarily
Relax.
cozy or relaxing. Truth be told, I play a lot of League and Valorant with friends, but you will never see me play that alone or if we're not a complete group. Kasi nga, I usually play the competitive games for fun because there's just something about interacting with your friends wherein parang whatever game you're playing, as long as you're all playing it together, it just makes you feel nice and makes you feel relaxed. So I guess that's one answer to that. But siguro if the question is framed talaga as in if it's just me, na parang what would I play today na parang I would just want to play. I love playing RPGs, like JRPGs, Western RPGs, anything talaga under the sun. So like for example, recently I've been replaying Final Fantasy X on the Switch. Just because parang I got into Magic the Gathering also lately and um the decks I've built are all the Final Fantasy Universes Beyond ones. So I was like, okay, maybe it's thematic if I also integrate that into my video gaming side. So yeah, I love playing a lot of RPGs, mga JRPGs, Western RPGs. Yeah, and actually, fun fact, my favorite game of all time is a game called Dragon Age Origins, if you're all familiar with that one. So it's an RPG na medieval theme. So yun, as in if it's just me in a world where I can just explore and, be a character. I love those games.
Oh, I might have to check that out because that medieval fantasy is very interesting. But I also loved what you said na do people really play games to relax? Kasi ako, I personally play Stardew Valley because people sold it as this cozy, relaxing game pero hindi talaga. Hindi talaga.
Yes. Yes. If you're also familiar with the recently released Pokemon Pokopia,
Mm.
yeah, I also got into that kasi parang ano siya like, it's kind of like Stardew Valley also an Animal Crossing wherein you build like this place, parang you renovate stuff, you make homes for Pokemon. Pero parang in in hindsight or in theory, it's relaxing. But like parang if you see something, oh, I have to do that. I have to make that look nice. So parang nasa-stress lang din ako. But it's still relaxing because I enjoy playing it. So I totally get you.
Yeah, that's true. Personally, yung spreadsheets ko for Stardew Valley is just gonna be quiet right now. But okay, let's get back to you, Miss V. I want to ask how you would describe your personal brand to someone who's never seen your cosplays or your streams.
Ooh, personal brand. I play or do cosplays to showcase a part of me that I feel like people would not necessarily appreciate, but I know to myself that I would love doing it. Because I think a big misconception about streaming, where well, back when I was super active in streaming pa, and cosplaying is like we do it for, let's say, the validation, or like people would assume that we do it to um ano ba, pique the interest of people. Which, I mean, truth be told, to a certain extent it is. Kasi diba, obviously you would want your content to be enjoyed by people. You would want your content to be something that people will click on to, or something that people would appreciate. But for me kasi, what I love about cosplaying and what I love about doing content and streaming, making videos, photos, etc., is I get to have that way to tap into like my identity, but making it mas grand, or mas bongga, or mas amazing, na parang it's more for me than for them, because I get to showcase this part of me that I know I can share, na it won't be painted or colored by anything else apart from how I want it to be shared, or how I want the world to see me. Like, whenever I do cosplays kasi, I mean, of course, syempre, when you think of like a character, we all have that one vision of how a character should look like. But for me, kasi I always make sure na it's still me wearing the character, and not na I have to be 100% authentically that character. So that's what I love about um doing all of the things that I do. Siguro, to paint you a better picture, I remember one particular event that I attended wherein I cosplayed Aerith Gainsborough of FF7. So people would normally assume Aerith to be the super like meek, shy girl, na flower girl lang siya ganyan. But I attended the convention with Sephiroth's sword. The one that, spoiler, the one that was used to end my character in the game. So parang all of the photos that people had with me were them, me. So parang gets, it's, I love making those like experiences with people, kasi na parang, oh, it's something that you don't expect when you see like that character, but it's something nice kasi you would always remember that that cosplayer did that. And I feel like that's something that I always love doing whenever I do anything creatively.
Yeah, that's true. It's so parang you really parang instead of letting the character take over you nga, it's you somehow taking over the character and the aesthetic
Yes.
of what you want that character to show as. And I really love
Mm-hmm.
that. That's so interesting also yung swords thing. Personally am not familiar with that character, pero that would be a really cool picture to understand. Parang mga legends lang nakakaalam. Ganun.
Yes, a
Sorry.
lot of people were asking to like, sorry for the word, if they can have photos to stab me. Kasi like, I literally brought the sword, na parang the iconic scene in the game kasi was that's how she like ended her
Mm.
stories. Like, she got stabbed. So I brought the Masamune as my prop, and then that day was a lot of photos of that.
Okay, so you've mentioned one of your cosplays na nga, like I want to ask because this might also be your answer, the one that you've mentioned previously, but what is the one character you've cosplayed that actually made you feel the most empowered, and did that confidence carry over into your actual gaming or streaming?
Oh, I'm gonna give you a different answer. It's going to have to be my very first cosplay ever, which is
Mhm.
Scarlet Witch from Multiverse of Madness. So that actually started my entire journey, period. As in, like, and naman, my entire cosplay journey. Let's say that. Um, and I feel like that would be my answer because it was my first time like going out of the screen, like during my career. Kasi a bit of like a story time ish. I started streaming way back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. And that was still during the lockdown era of the world. So when I got my brand established, and when people started to know who I am, people started tuning into me and what I do, and when people started to get to know me, it was always just on screen. It was always behind the phone screen, the PC screen, the laptop screen, or what have you, simply because the world was not allowing us to have any other means to interact. So when I attended my first ever event after the that era, um, that was also my first time getting into cosplay, because a lot of my friends were like telling me, "Oh, let's try to cosplay," or like parang let's get you into cosplay because I'm a very nerdy type of girl talaga. Like I love comic books, I love movies, I love books. So parang I was always like into all of that, but I never got the chance to do so. So they invited me to do it, and I said, "Okay, well, I have to start with one of my favorite characters ever, which is Scarlet Witch." And that for me was a very empowering moment because not only was that the first time na parang I was introducing myself to the actual world because it was, in person, real time, but it was also a way for me to like showcase that type of strength that normally you wouldn't do it. Kasi like if any of you are familiar with Scarlet Witch in the movie, she's very like powerful, aggressive, like balls to the wall. Like I'm not even gonna listen to you. I'm gonna have my way. So parang I had to channel that whenever I interacted with people, like in person, whenever they ask for a photo of me, syempre dapat super like, fierce, evil, aggressive, whatever. And it was nice kasi parang I also got the freedom to just let go and let loose. Na parang, oh, I don't have to have this certain type of image. I just have to be the strong, powerful woman that I know that I am and channeling it through one of my favorite characters. So parang, yun, that's my answer talaga kasi it will always be one that I will go back to because it's one that I will always want to keep remaking and redoing as I continue on in my cosplay career.
Oh, and for the record, I love Scarlet Witch. I would love to see your take on her. I would love to see
Yes,
pictures if you could send us after.
of course.
But my next question, my next question is: do you think being a cosplayer makes you appreciate a game's lore or design more than the average player? And how does that change the way you talk about games on stream?
Okay. Siguro I wouldn't say that it makes me appreciate it more than an average player because I feel like my appreciation of a game is not necessarily hinged on my being a cosplayer, but with me just being a nerdy person, if that makes sense. Na parang, okay, I'm not gonna lie na whenever I want to cosplay a character, I get into this entire space of like, how does she interact with people? Where does she come from? Like, if she was placed in this scenario, how would she do it? Because I'm very like method in that way because I was also like a theater girly way back in the day. So parang I get into that headspace a lot. Kasi whenever I meet people in character and they want to meet me as the character, syempre I have to like bring all of the homework there, diba? So that's how I get into that. Parang I really want it to be studied, but not like super like, oh my god, stressed study, but like studied in a way na parang if I was her in this world, how would I do it? Um, so but that is just me. I mean, I feel like that's not just hinged on being a cosplayer. It's fine. It's really just me. But for streaming naman, I think it also allows me to be more of a person that can share a lot of things. Kasi for example, I remember this one time when WandaVision was still airing, like actively airing. Um, my portion done in one of my streams in the week, I think that's Friday, na parang the last part of my stream, we always talk about the episode. And then I give them like um things I picked up on as a hardcore comic book reader na parang, did you guys see that there was like this part in the show na ganito? It's like pointing to like an Easter egg to something that maybe ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. And then I would go on about a certain theory na parang it's refreshing to see that people who are just casual viewers of, for example, the show were like learning about it. Na parang, oh, that was there pala because of like that. So parang I feel like that became something that I get to share with people simply because I was so invested in the character. But again, it's not necessarily because I was a cosplayer, but maybe because I'm just a nerdy girl who loves nerdy things. But yeah, I mean, I think naman you can tie two and two together na parang because I cosplay her. I mean, I love her because I cosplay her and thereby the love from that just translates to everything else that I do or things that I can share with people. So, ayun. Yun lang siya.
Yeah, I guess embracing your identity then kasi and parang truly knowing yourself, what you're good at, what you excel in. You can apply it to
Mm.
every other thing, not just cosplay, but in gaming and everything and how you think. So again, I really love that for you, Miss V. Um I'm going to ask, but it's more like you can choose if you want to talk about the cosplaying side of things or the streaming kind of
Mm-hmm.
things.
Okay.
Well, if it's the cosplay, it's like, what's the biggest fail or wardrobe malfunction that you've had that taught you a lesson about being prepared? But if you want to go in the streaming route, it's technically the same thing. Parang what's the biggest fail lang, or like um technical issue, I guess, that you've had while streaming that taught you a lesson about being prepared?
Hmm. It's very difficult. Sige, since I talked a lot about the cosplay stuff, I'll move on to the streaming stuff naman. Because I feel like, especially in this current day and age, a lot of people are starting to get into content creation as
Mm.
well. So parang I feel like maybe that might be more beneficial. So siguro the biggest, hindi naman siguro fail, pero parang thing that made me think na, oh, I should have been more prepared for this. Um, siguro the usual of testing the internet before.
Uh,
I mean, as general as that can be, or as parang menial if you think about it. Sometimes kasi when you just get into the zone na parang, oh, I want to stream this today. I want to talk about this today. I want to just do this now. Kasi sometimes I always get those like bursts of like creative ideas na parang today, I'm just gonna stream this instead of my usual because like I've been so obsessed about this. I want to share it with people. I want to talk about it with people and I have to do it today. Na parang sometimes all of the things that you normally would do like on a checklist kasi whenever I stream or whenever I like create like content or something, syempre I always have a checklist of like, is this ready? Okay na ba to? Like if I do this in this flow, will it all be? I mean, I'm not sure if that's for everyone or if it's just the Virgo in me. But I always do that kasi. So parang one time, um, I was streaming Final Fantasy 14. So if you are all familiar with that, it's an MMO, Final Fantasy 14. I wanted to stream a raid that I was doing because parang makiklear na ata namin siya. Or parang we were trying to progress through a certain mechanic that we've been stuck in for a while. Tapos parang I wanted to just stream it. And then in the middle of it, biglang like nag-lag. Tapos ako parang, oh my God, ano nangyayari? And then, nakita ko na lang yung Streamlabs ko, like, hindi na siya nag-record. Tapos parang, it's like, oh my God, hindi ako nag-test. Like, anything. Like, I just went into the stream, I just did it. Tapos hindi ako nag-test, which I normally do. Di ba? Parang test mo yung latency. Mag-test ka muna if, like, the audio is fine or whatever. Hindi ko siya ginawa. Tapos parang, ayun na siya. Parang, oh, meron palang scheduled maintenance that day. Like, I will never forget that day kasi nag-notify naman na parang there's gonna be a scheduled maintenance, blah, 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 like downtime ng ganyan, whatever, whatever. So, parang, oh, I could have like, been more responsible about it. Na parang, kasi nga like I mentioned, sometimes you wouldn't think about the simple things when you're used to like how it normally goes. Or parang, normally naman, it goes by smoothly. Na parang you wouldn't think twice about double checking. But then syempre, as much as it spoiled my experience as the streamer, it spoils the experience of the viewer even more. Kasi parang, watching you investing time, parang they chose to devote time to seeing you and what you're doing, tas mangyari yon. So yun, I think that would be the one to answer your question.
yeah, I get that so much. Parang if we were to put a term, siguro the complacency also of knowing na everything goes well naman usually. So parang anong pagkakaiba ng araw na to? I get that. But
Yes.
yeah, so now that we're talking about you streaming, I want to ask you, because streaming can be a double-edged sword for women. I want to ask how you have built a community on your own channel that feels safe and supportive.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Siguro I would have to be self-aware enough to say that I believe that when I came into the scene, it was a very privileged space for me because luckily enough, I wasn't able to encounter a lot. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say I have encountered some na very, ano ba, objectifying or aggressive viewers pa rin. Like, I'm not gonna say that they don't exist, but I'm privileged enough to acknowledge the fact that most of the time, it's a very safe and harmonious space within the community that I established. And I think part and parcel of how that came about is I really started doing content whenever I was already a part of a community of a game that I wanted to stream. Like, for example, the first ever game that I streamed, which is now not no longer with us. It's a game called Marvel Super War. Hindi ko alam kung naabutan niyo pa siya, but it's like Mobile Legends na Marvel yung theme. Like the characters were Marvel characters. So it's basically a MOBA on the phone na Marvel game. So I got into streaming there because I was already like part of like a gaming community of the game na very, very like welcoming, open, ganyan, ganyan, ganyan. Na parang, ang nangyari pa nga sa amin before, di ba, yung streaming during the lockdown era, na all of us who were streamers had like a certain like schedule in the day. And parang the first streamer of coming lineup start at 11 a.m. And then the last streamer would end at around mga 1:30 a.m. Tapos sunod-sunod lang kami nagsistream like round the clock. So parang the audience just keeps like moving to each streamer very seamlessly, very harmoniously. Na parang it was so healthy kasi it feels very supportive and it feels very like, oh, you will always have these people who are here to watch you regardless. But even though I had that, feel ko because of how much support I was getting already, na it started channeling to getting more people who were seeing na, oh, parang ang positive nung space na they were also like contributing to the positivity. And later on, that also channeled further to the other games that I streamed. Like for example, when I mentioned yung FF14 or Final Fantasy 14, which I also streamed when I was already like, part of the community there. Um, I never actually in that game I never really encountered any form of like toxicity or like negative anything simply because my comments was filled with like positive stuff like parang showing support, giving me tips ganyan, or like telling me that na I'm doing a good job, etc., or parang sharing what they liked about what I was doing, or parang sharing their own experiences of where I was at that point of the game. So parang I feel like I was very lucky enough to do that, or very privileged enough to experience that. But we can't deny the fact that sometimes kasi when it's a certain game or a type of game na it's very male dominated or very like skill dependent, that there will be people who will always have like critical red lenses on anyone that they see. So for example, like I mentioned to you, like I have a barkada kasi now na gaming barkada siya who started out as viewers ko,
Mm-hmm.
but we got like very close na moving forward. And the game that got us close was League of Legends. So if you know the type of game that League of Legends is, like, it's a very like male dominated space, very competitive scene, na parang skill issue, whatever. So sometimes, syempre when I'm streaming that, especially when I streamed like my rank game stuff, na parang sometimes may mga mag-hop in na parang syempre mga negative comments or parang very like sexist stuff na parang um girl kasi or whatever, or parang like the usual. I mean, I'm not gonna delve into that, pero like I'm sure if you're a girl gamer you would have an idea of what I mean, or yeah. So but even though I get one-offs like that kasi nabe-bury talaga siya with all of the other supportive stuff that I get. um So yun, I feel like that's very helpful. Na parang whenever you start getting into something, like it really, ano ba, it really helps if the space you're creating on your own, like the community that you're generating, is very much filled with the vibe that you want. Kasi even though the negative stuff start seeping through or start penetrating the walls that you're trying to create, it will always be like overwhelmed by the vibes or the presence that you've established for how long now, or the type of energy that your community is really like, parang the energy, the core of the community that you have. So yun, I mean, I feel like it's as much as it's your responsibility to establish that, um it still really helps if you have the people to back you up whenever you have that type of thing that you want to propagate into the world.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna ask you actually because I really that's really good to hear na parang mas na-overwhelm ng positiveness, ng positive comments,
Yes.
ng positive replies than the negative comments. That's really good to hear because I feel like um I feel like now it's kind of rare. But I wanted to ask you that, but you've mentioned na-answer mo na siya, do you think games differ, parang the community differs because of the games? Because as you've said, League of Legends, toxic fan base or toxic player base. I think Mobile Legends is also up there. Things like, I think you mentioned Final Fantasy 14 or yung mga Final Fantasy. Do you think they're like, what are the differences in those communities when it comes to treating women?
Okay. So, see, I'll answer it muna in a way na game dependent because you asked me that earlier, like if the game itself. I feel like the nature of the game itself also creates the type of community that will follow it. Like for example, kasi like as you mentioned, Final Fantasy 14, which I streamed a lot, the type of game it is kasi is very cooperative. Kasi for example, like the raiding is a group of 8 people talaga wherein you have a strategy that you have to like execute as a group. So parang the nature of the gameplay pa lang is very cooperative already. Whereas for example, if it's a game na mobile like League of Legends or even an FPS like Valorant ganyan, na it's very a hyper competitive environment na parang even though it is technically cooperative, it's still a team versus a team. That's literally what you're doing, 'di ba? So parang the tendency of people kasi if it's that nature is okay, if we don't win, that means may pabigat. Or if
Yeah.
we don't win, it means may hindi magaling. Something like that. 'Di ba parang yun kasi yung nagiging culture that the game is not necessarily siguro directly like trying to like spread, pero kasi that's the adverse effect of putting people in an environment that they have to fight each other talaga. So parang I also think that I mean for games like that kasi pride becomes a factor a lot of the times na when you want to be in a space that's very competitive, you would always assume to be the best one or you want to be the the one who's carrying the team. And parang if you're not winning, it's not my fault because I'm doing my best. So why aren't you, diba? So parang usually ganun yung nagiging conversation. So I feel like throughout the test of time, yun na yung nagiging culture that the game is solidifying or creating for its community, even though that's not directly what it's trying to do. But for other games na like I mentioned, that's very cooperative, or even like yung mga RPGs na parang it's your own strategy of how you're gonna do it, wherein the environment is really more of like, okay, how am I gonna do this? Or like, how are we supposed to do this? Na parang everyone's goal is the same. Na you just have to finish this quest. Or for example, you have to beat this boss all together. I feel like the culture then shifts to a healthier way na parang, okay, since I was able to do it, I would want them to do it also. Or like parang, if you're looking at it naman critically, it's never as harsh as a skill issue or like, hindi ka kasi marunong maglaro. It's more of like, okay, you're not doing it in this way, so maybe try this, 'di ba? So parang the conversation shifts into a healthier way. Kasi even though it's critical, kasi what's wrong eh. So parang you can point it out to show them like how they're not doing it correctly. Whereas in a competitive game where it's like dependent talaga on how the play goes, if it doesn't work out, since you don't know how it could have played out, you will just say, B word ka kasi hindi mo siya ginawa ng tama. Na parang, in hindsight though, you wouldn't even know na what would happen if that strategy succeeds. Kasi hindi naman siya like, di ba, same goal na parang anything goes kasi in games like that. So I feel like it's that in terms of answering it in terms of the game. But I would also believe that culture plays a big thing in terms of like the community base. Kasi for example, for FF14, Final Fantasy 14, the community is very international. Um, I have played with a lot of people mixed from Southeast Asia, East Asia, US, Europe, ganyan. Na parang it's really like an amalgamation of all cultures. Na parang if may toxic culture dyan, marami ka pang mamimit na hindi. Ganun siya. Whereas, let's say in League of Legends or Valorant, na you're very confined into the space of your own culture. Na let's be honest naman kasi talaga. I mean, the Filipino culture is very like sometimes it becomes mapangotya, for lack of a better term, where and they're really like pointing things out as opposed to like suggesting solutions of how to make things work. Um, it becomes ingrained into how people just look at things. Na if everyone is being mapangotya or very critical without offering a solution or like positive reinforcement, then that like behavior will be normalized. And when that behavior is normalized, everyone would think that we can just do it. Whereas if you're with cultures na halo-halo, if a culture that doesn't like what this culture is doing, it's gonna be very strong in calling this out. And when someone else sees that this culture is calling this out, that means that behavior will not be normalized, so it will not be widespread. So I feel like yun yung nagiging difference of the type of culture naman. Na parang monkey see, monkey do, 'di ba? If that's normal, I can do it. I'm not gonna think about whether it's right or wrong, but since that is something that that person is doing and no one is saying anything about it, I can do it. But if I see someone calling that out a lot of the time, then maybe I should think twice about doing that. Maybe not so that I would think it's right, but maybe so also to not get called out, which for me is still a way to prevent that bad behavior, diba? Like regardless of what the intention is. So I feel like that really falls part into why nagkakaganon yung like different experiences.
That's true. Oh my god, everything was so well said. I actually think that could be a thesis in itself kasi ang ang ganda. I actually learned so much, or parang mas na-remind ako of how culture really plays a part um in that. I think I would love to talk to you more about that off screen. I I would like to ask you for the girls sana in this kind of like a field, yung parang esports, streaming, gaming field, uh, or ayun, for people, for girls who want to get into content creation, cosplay, and streaming, but are worried about the male gaze or the toxicity as we've been talking about. What's your on the record advice for them?
Oh, on the record advice for them is to always make sure that you have a strong support group or a strong support system. Because as much as we want to change the world, which I'm sure everyone would want to do, diba? We all have this ideal vision of how the world should be, wherein everyone is happy, everyone is safe, everyone is content, ganyan. Sometimes, we have to face reality na this behavior exists. And as much as in our own safe spaces, this behavior is contained or managed, when the moment we step out of that, it's not guaranteed. So, my advice is to always have a strong support group that will always tell you or at least support you na parang if you hear this or if you receive this, you have a support group that will make sure or reinforce your personality, your person na I will not take this because that's just what you're saying. It's not what the reality is. And siguro it would also, like I mentioned, help to create or foster that own community wherein you would feel safe, you would feel protected, you would feel embraced, you would feel celebrated. Kasi siguro naman stepping away from the video side of things. So as I mentioned, I also play a lot of trading card games. So apart from Magic, which I started very recently, I also play Pokemon TCG. So if people are familiar with that, I get into the competitive scene of that kasi. And for me, it's very heartwarming to see that a lot of women are playing it, even though usually people would assume that if it's a trading card game, it's purely male, diba? But seeing how there are a lot of women getting into it and a lot of women like meeting other women who play it also. And very recently also in one of my local gaming stores, it's called Hobby Stadium. So hi Hobby Stadium. They hosted a women's month tournament. It was all women. So it was also fun because you would see that there are a lot of women supporting each other in whatever field or interest they're in. So I feel like being able to find that, being able to stay in that, and being able to thrive in that really helps. Because one voice of a man is just a man's voice. It's not the truth of the world.
Oh, period. Oh my god,
Period.
such a no, quotable quote. Tama ba yun? But I love that. I would get that hung there. Okay. Anyway, I think this is our last question, Miss V. I just want to ask where you want to take your creative journey next. Is there a dream cosplay, or is there like a streaming project, a major event that you're aiming for?
Oh, okay. So apart from my creative side, which is unfortunately taking a slower ano ba, push because of life. I'm still very much active din kasi in my other stuff. Like for example, if you are all a member of the Pokemon Philippines community group on Facebook, I am an admin there, and we are the group who organizes PokeCon. So if you're familiar with PokeCon, it's like a convention, a yearly convention, wherein we celebrate everything Pokemon. So we have a lot of merch, we have programs showcasing cosplayers, we have programs showcasing trading card games, video games. So that's actually an event that is happening this year, but syempre wink wink nudge nudge muna on the date. But that is an event that I am looking forward to, wherein I always feature a new Pokemon cosplay. So if you're interested in Pokemon, that is a very direct next step for me this year. But apart from that, since I'm also very much active in the Final Fantasy world as well, I also plan on attending an event this August. So it's also a locally organized event. It's called Hello World. It's a Final Fantasy 14 event naman where it will also feature a new cosplay. So yeah, there. Those are the two very immediate ones. Siguro I could think of at the top of my head. But apart from that, I really would love to get back into a lot of content. Like for example, I've been recommended by my friends to do a lot of like cosplay transition content because I did a lot of cosplays in the past na parang it was all photo shoots na parang people never saw the how I am before the how I am when it's all like there. So yeah, I plan on doing a lot of that as well kasi marami na nga naka pending in the bin for me to do that. Yeah, and I would love to also meet a lot of people again in conventions, especially once this year kasi I think a lot of conventions are also starting to pop up here and there again this year. So hopefully we can get into that as well. But yeah, I mean, whether or not you see me in conventions or in person in the street, for sure you will see more of me online as well.
Oh, I love that for you. So much exciting stuff for you. And as you've mentioned, I think 3 years na nga that we've been inviting you here in LG. So hopefully we get to see you next year as well. Hindi lang sa
Oh my gosh.
conventions and sa street,
Yes.
but also
Let me know,
in LG.
guys.
Oh, yes. Um yes, so
Yes.
that's it. Actually, that's a wrap for this episode of On the Record. Thank you so much, Miss V. I think what really stuck with me today was about that whole thesis nga of the culture play, like how culture plays in gaming and how gaming plays part in culture. um I really love that. Thank you so much. I hope it resonated with everyone watching also. Before we officially close the record on this video, Miss V, the floor is yours. Who do you want to thank and where can everyone follow your journey?
Of course. So, hi guys. First of all, I want to thank you again, of course, LG, for inviting me for the third year. Grabe. Parang sunod-sunod na talaga to. And I'm honestly very honored because like not only am I being given a platform to share all of these things, no, because a lot of things change, of course, year after year, but I'm also very honored that you guys get to witness my journey with me as well. Kasi from how things were like 3 years ago to how things are now. I mean, a lot has changed, but at least the passion for putting all of these things out there, spreading the word about my advocacy, spreading the word about having all of these platforms for us be accessible is always going to remain the same. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to be here once again. But of course, I would also want to thank all of my friends, my community, all of my viewers, my supporters who always are there telling me that anytime decide to come back to doing anything, they will always just be there. So thank you for all of that. And of course, I want to thank all of the people watching, whether you are a part of LG, or whether you know me before this episode or not, as long as you are here seeing all of this, I want to thank you for taking the time to hear us out, to hear our stories out, and to learn more about these things every single day because, learning is fun and learning is a part of life. And I really hope that all of you guys be able to authentically be yourselves, whether or not it's in gaming, it's in content, or just in your everyday life. Always know that your life is your own, so whatever they say, don't listen unless of course it's constructive kasi 'di ba pag constructive syempre character development din tayo. So yun, thank you guys. You can find me on all of my social media. I have my Facebook page. It's Miss V. You can find me on Instagram as well. It's underscore Miss V. And you can find me on TikTok, although that is still not super updated, but it will be updated, I promise. It's underscore Miss V as well. So thank you so much.
Again, check out Miss V's socials. Again, thank you so much, Miss V. It's been amazing seeing the creative heart of this industry through your eyes. And for everyone else listening, stay tuned. And if you've enjoyed our kwentuhan today, or if you felt inspired by today's conversation, please check out Miss V's works on her socials. We'll have the links in the description or in the captions. I've been your host today, Minru. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye bye.